And now, an Unsigned Artist Reveal Worldwide Spotlight. Scott AlbertJohnson, singer, songwriter, musician, born in St. Louis, boasting travels from the East to the West Coast, graduate of Harvard and Columbia Universities. Johnson is also noted for working at one of the most historical houses in the world. But music would unexpectedly call the creative and take him down another path, one of performances that continue to highlight his gift as a harmonica player. Join us for one of the most interesting conversations to date with Unsigned Artist Reveal Worldwide special guest, Scott AlbertJohnson. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome again to Unsigned Artist Reveal Worldwide. I am so happy to have you on. Yes, the people are coming in, the numbers are rising, comments are coming up. Listen, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to get your handheld, share, invite, let everybody know we are on with our very, very, very special guest. I met this gentleman last year, and he is just so interesting that I thought you guys would want to hear about him. An amazing musician, singer, songwriter. Listen, guys, let me bring on our special guest for the evening and everybody introducing to you Scott Albert Johnson. Scott!
Hey, how you
Hey!
doing? Good to see you.
Thank you. And same to you. It's been a moment since the last time I chatted with you.
Yeah. Trying to stay warm. Starting to warm up a little bit. It was nice today, so I got out.
I know.
Uh,
Such a beautiful day. And you guys, guess what? We are both in Jackson, Mississippi. Now, this is a first, Scott, actually.
oh, really? Okay.
I've been doing this since 2018, and I've never had a local guest
Really?
on
Well,
the show.
thank you for making me the first.
You're
That's
the
very nice.
first. I know, right? I love it. I love it. I'm going to do more. I promise. I promise. It's just that when they see the slots are open, we they just fill so quickly, and I'm just so honored to have interviewed people all around the world. Today, before I got here, there's a gentleman from Brisbane, Australia,
Mhm.
that wants to come on the show in May. So we're literally worldwide. So it's
I've
nice.
been down there. It's a great country.
Have you
Yeah,
really? It's like what, 16-hour difference?
something like that. I was living in DC at the time, and so it was a whatever 5 hour flight, I guess, to DC. Had a
Sure.
pretty decent layover, and then it was a 16 and a half hour flight to Melbourne. Uh,
Wow.
and yeah, they showed 5 movies, including Oh Brother Where Art Thou 3 times.
Oh boy.
And as soon as I got there, I almost got hit by a truck because I was walking from my hotel to where I was going, and I had to walk under an overpass.
Sure.
And as and there's the thing that whatever they call it that holds up the overpass. I was kind of walking right past it, and I didn't occur to me that they drive on the left side of the road there.
Oh, that's right.
I'm starting to walk up, and I didn't see him coming because it was coming like it was hidden by the thing. And I jumped back, and I'd been there like 40 minutes. I'm like,
He gets not even a whole hour yet.
yeah. Great place though. I ended up that was the only bad thing that happened. It was a great place.
Oh
Great place.
wow. Well, hopefully I'll get an opportunity to see. I've got a lot of different places in the world on my bucket list that I'd like to visit. London is one of them. I would love. Have you been there?
I have not been there. I've been to the European continent several
Hmm.
times, but I've never been to the UK or Ireland. Unfortunately, I'm hoping to change that.
Absolutely. I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Well, you are a very interesting person there, Scott.
Or are you?
You are very interesting and definitely an amazing creative. I want everybody to kind of learn a little bit about who you are, and if if going backwards,
is the best place for you to start. I mean, you can start wherever you want, but share enough backwards to where people can kind of say, oh, now I kind of understand where this started. So share with us your beginning.
Sure. So
And
I'm a little bit, I guess you could almost say, schizophrenic, because all the places I've lived, I can't really identify any one region as like that's like I can't really say I'm fully a Southerner because I lived in the Northeast for so long and the
yep.
Midwest and all that. So that's definitely a big part of who I am. But I was born in St. Louis in 1970, and I was adopted. I'm an adopted child. Um, and I was an only child, raised as an only child by my parents, who were awesome. My mom passed away about almost 8 years ago, but my dad's still around and get to see him a
Got it.
lot. Great parents. Lived in St. Louis for most of my first 9 years, although there was a little brief interlude in the middle where we moved to Alabama. My dad was an
Right.
engineer and
Yeah.
was running a factory down there, and then the company transferred him back to St. Louis a couple years later. So, but they're from Mississippi. They're from Hattiesburg, and so
Oh,
I had been coming here my whole life to visit grandparents, and I was familiar with Hattiesburg. That was really it. But um, so we moved to Tupelo for a year. My dad was going to be transferred up north, way up north, and didn't want to take me that far away from uh, grandparents and so forth. So we moved to Tupelo for a year and thought that was going to be long term. And it was a nice. I remember it as a nice town, but it was a lot smaller than what I was used to. And then my dad was transferred or took another job in Jackson about a year and a half later.
got it.
Um, my dad still lives in the same house I grew up in. It was an interesting time. I'd been moving around a lot, and I was a little tired of that. Um,
Sure. Sure.
but I landed in a great community. I went to St. Andrew's School here, and one of the first things that happened there. I'm the new kid, still trying to get to know people, and about 4 or 5 months into the school year, my mom was diagnosed with what was supposed to be terminal cancer. It was endometrial cancer. They gave her a short time to live,
Wow.
and that school community and some families and the teachers and the principal and everyone, they just really kind of wrapped me up and like say, you don't have to go through this alone. And I've really never forgotten that. And as it happens, my mom lived for 35 more years after
What?
that, which was pretty awesome.
Yay.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
blessing. Such
Yeah.
a blessing.
So
Yeah.
I moved here, and I was kind of a mix of like a jock and an artsy kid. I played a bunch of sports, basketball and soccer and football, especially. But I also sang, and I played in bands, and I was interested in literature and all that kind of stuff. And it was a nice environment at the time back in 1980s, that community. Um, there were a lot of kids like that, and who
Sure.
for the most part encouraged each other in what we did. And you know the families were all close. There wasn't a lot of some of the nonsense that you see
Mm.
in arts or athletic environments nowadays. The intensity of it just it wasn't like that. It was very supportive. um, I wanted to play a sport in college. I think originally I wanted to play basketball, but I'm right now 6'3", 185, which is the same height and just a little heavier than I was in the eighth grade.
What?
So 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 I thought I was going to be the 6'10", 6'11",
Wow.
thing, and didn't work out. I was an okay player in high school, but it wasn't going to happen in college. But
Mm.
I could kick a football, and that was kind of my ticket to maybe some schools that I might have had a chance to get in, but really kind of sealed the deal. And so I ended up uh, getting accepted to Harvard, and I played for them for all 4 years. Um, and I did some music while I was in school, but I had to kind of make some decisions about where I was going to focus my time, and
Sure.
and it was a D1 football, so it was a big time commitment. Um,
Mm.
but I still did some musical things, but it kind of receded into the background a bit. And graduated from college in '92. Really, I was a political science major, kind of because that's all I could figure out to do, and really had not thought very hard about what I was going to do next. And so, go ahead. I'm sorry. Do you want to say
No,
something?
no, 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 no. I, I've seen like tons and tons and tons of articles um, about everything that you're sharing. I think, though, the interest for me was the fact that you were this young kid who, somewhere along the lines, and I'm not sure, and I want to give you the floor to share, somewhere along the lines you had an interest in jazz, which of course, our platform is predominantly contemporary jazz, some what we call soft soul here. Can you remember any of the times when there was jazz being played around you? Was there a specific time and point in your life when that happened?
Oh yeah, and I don't know if this was the first time. I
Okay.
don't think it was, but I guess what I really think of as the time when it really made the biggest impact on me was,
Right.
so I was a bass player mostly in high school,
Ah,
bass player and singer, and I was in the jazz ensemble at my school, and it was the first jazz ensemble. I was in it the first, I guess, 2 or 3 years that they had it, and um, interestingly, the core of the group, the bassist, drummer, and guitar player, that
sure.
was also my band outside of school. That was
Whoa.
my rock band. But here we were as the core of a larger band with a horn
Sure.
section. We
Sure.
played Duke Ellington and Miles Davis and Herbie Hancock and stuff like that. And music, which I really was only a little familiar with at that point. And I'm not saying I became an expert on it then either, but I learned how to play it at least on a rudimentary level, and
Sure.
it was a broadening of the horizons. Now that went along with the fact that I did already have a natural interest in blues growing up in Mississippi, and
That's
also
right.
a big fan of a lot of the rock bands that were very clearly blues influenced or derived, like Led Zeppelin, the Stones,
Right.
that Jimi Hendrix, of course.
Hmm.
These were all heroes of mine, and
Right.
so I guess what I'm getting at, there was a very heavy improvisational jazz-ish approach to the things that I was interested in and that I was doing. Later
And
on, that the jazz thing became, bigger, and I learned more about the harmonic differences and that kind of stuff. But early on, it was just kind of circumstance how it came together.
of course, of course, of course. And for me, that I feel at least that is like a seed sown towards the path that to some degree, whether large or small, that you end up following. And as I listen to some of the music um, from your releases, I heard a little bit of uh, Randy Newman.
Sure.
Randy, Randy, the song, what is it? I love to see you smile. That's like one of my favorite songs by Randy Newman. When I hear you, I hear a little bit of him,
Mhm.
and then
Not a lot.
as I started researching you, I saw his name in places, and I thought, wow, I haven't lost my ear. It's been a few years, but I haven't lost my ear. As well as Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
Now, those were the two people vocally that I could compare you to, that people would know. Now, I don't know how many people know about Randy Newman, but he was just highly honored around the world. Um, Peter Gabriel, his hit was Sledgehammer. So if you remember that, those are the voices that I thought you sounded like, and it was just so ironic that when I began to research you, those were some of the names that you kind of utilize as far as influences or people that you listen to. That
Yeah,
amazed me.
they definitely are. I mean, certainly from Randy Newman, especially from a songwriting point of view.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of his songwriting ever, since I was a kid, really. And then Peter Gabriel, to me, I mean, if I was going to pick one solo artist that I admired the most, that's hard to do, obviously, but
Sure.
that has affected me the most. Let's put it that way. I would have to say him. And I was also very influenced by bands like the Police and Rush, and I'm a big Stevie
Uh,
Wonder fan, like for the songs, but also for his harmonica playing because I'm a harmonica.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, my interests are super broad, and although I do find lately they do tend to be centered back in the 80s and 90s. I'm trying to get past that a little bit.
It's okay though, because that's
the 60s through the 90s. Let's put it that way.
years of just great music,
Yeah.
great music. And we are definitely on time. I love it. It's a quarter of, and I want to do the first break. But before I do, you kind of alluded to the fact, well, we know that you did, but you mentioned the fact that you had attended two schools, both Ivy League schools, um, Harvard and Columbia. Now, being a political science major, of course, my thought is that you were looking towards or headed towards one of the most historical houses in the world, and we know what that is. And I read somewhere that you did work there for a brief time.
Yes. So after I graduated from college, you know, and
Sure.
practically, like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have no idea what the future is going to be. I'm a clueless 22-year-old. I came back to Jackson,
Sure.
living at home. My parents were giving me the like, okay, what's it going to be? Look,
What you doing?
yeah. We have a plan here.
Yeah.
And so I was working at a Tex-Mex restaurant on County Line Road, and believe me when I tell you that some of my younger St. Andrews friends who were
Sure.
still in college, they came in to sit at my table, and it was all, you know, to mock me, like
Of course.
you went to Harvard where? But honestly, I was just trying to make some spending money to figure out what I was doing. I ended up volunteering on Bill Clinton's first presidential campaign here in Jackson. And I got to know a lot of people through that. I got to know former Congressman Espy pretty well, former Governor Winter. I was just a volunteer, but I got really involved in what was going on. And then from that, I decided to move to Washington and ended up finally getting a job at the White House. And I was there for about a year and a half. I wasn't actually working in the White House itself. I was working in the building next door, but it was part of the office of the president. And my boss at the time, her name was Nancy Ann DeParle. Nancy Ann Min. It's now Nancy Ann DeParle. Went on to be President Obama's chief of staff and was one of the chief architects of Obamacare passing. So, and I'm still in touch with her, which is really great. Hold on, let me tell my son something real quick.
Sure. Amazing. Isn't it just amazing?
Sorry.
No worries.
And that was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the White House or around the White House at the time that President Clinton, or actually Hillary Clinton's healthcare reform effort was proceeding.
Right.
So I to see a lot of that was going on. I think I realized eventually that like working in the political world didn't really suit my temperament. And you know, for a lot of reasons. I mean, I have pretty strong opinions, and they were pretty consistent with that administration. But I'm also not, you know, I like to think more about, you know, the facts and not necessarily the side.
Of course.
And that, or at least I thought I did, and that drew me to, well, you know, possible interest in journalism. I had been told in the past that I was a good natural writer, and I thought, well, you know, that might be a natural thing for me to do. So I went to Columbia University in New York to their graduate school of journalism, and that's a 1-year program. And I graduated from there, and that was the mid '90s. So that was really when the internet was first starting to explode.
Right.
And my the job opportunities that seemed most interesting to me and promising to me were all sort of in that realm. So that's what I did for a while. I worked at some of the old online services like Prodigy and CompuServe.
Yep.
I worked for ABC, the network, for their initial sort of online, you know, efforts. And then I created my own website, which was one of the first political blogs or campaign blogs. It was called Publius.
Sure.
And I basically shadowed the candidates around the campaign trail in 1996, but I did little like man on the street stories with people there and got a little attention for that. And it was like, type of thing where I feel like if I had been committed enough to journalism, it would have been a good step to continue that. But I really wasn't fully committed to it, although I did have some other interesting journalism jobs. I was actually the editor of a website, a journalistic website about the Y2K computer problem, the computer web. And that was in DC, and I got to actually interview like the White House Y2K person and the UN's Y2K person. I got to really kind of dive deep into that topic, and that was interesting. But ultimately, I just felt like I had other ways I wanted to be creative, and that wasn't necessarily it.
Right.
And that's around the time I kind of dove back into music. So.
And I want to talk about that too. If you could just hang out with us for just a minute or two, we're going to take our first break of the night. You guys, thank you so much for coming in. I'm posting just a few of the comments as they come in. Our guest tonight is Scott AlbertJohnson. We're going to come back with him in just a few more minutes. Please stay. There's a lot I want you to find out about him. He is an amazing creative, and you don't want to miss any of it. We'll be right back.
The Platinum Agencies is taking the indie brand to the next level with customized strategies that include interviews on Unsigned Artist Reveal Worldwide, as well as campaigns on social media. Listen to what these artists have to say about us. Soul R&B artist Selena Albright says, "I believe in the Platinum Agencies and the amazing things it will continue to do for independent artists in the future. Not only does Sabrina Taylor have an ear for the best-kept secrets in the music industry, but in a market where independently made music tends to be greatly overshadowed, her platform offers a unique opportunity for all artists to be heard. Some of my favorite interviews of my career have been with Sabrina Taylor. She really knows how to ask the right questions to capture the hidden story behind the music that fans want to hear. And I've always been so moved by her ability to pair her original imagery to my music whenever I visit her platform." Soul jazz artist Cherie Patrice says, "UAR is a great platform and source for indie artists to promote, expound, and extend their brand. You can always count on UAR to capture the essence, the heart, and the soul of an indie artist within its presentation. I always feel welcomed, celebrated, and in good hands with its CEO and founder, Sabrina Taylor, who puts her grand touch of elegance and excellence on every artist she comes in contact with. I highly endorse the UAR Worldwide experience. Connect with the Platinum Agencies at tpatheplatinamumagencies.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Sabrina Taylor here, creator and host of Unsigned Artist Reveal Worldwide. If you are just joining us, you are in for a treat tonight. Scott AlbertJohnson is with us on tonight. And Scott, before we went to break, we were beginning to delve into the music part of your career. I want to talk instruments because that's where we're going to end up going before the end of the night.
I knew it.
Yeah, of course, we've got to. So you shared that you played bass, but did we ever talk about your little stint with violin, or did we ever?
Yeah, so I don't think we did. So I did start on the violin back in the
Yeah,
third grade, taking Suzuki lessons,
right.
and I mean I was okay, but like and the music part came pretty naturally to me, like understanding what was going on musically. But it was just the technical part of it it just didn't suit me.
Got it.
I mean, I could do the basic stuff when we were first starting, but as things got more complicated, I could just see that I don't know if I didn't have the fingers for it. I don't think it was the coordination, because I ended up playing bass and regular guitar, and those came much more easily later. But I think also, it often has to do with like what kind of music you like as well.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
the stuff we were doing on violin, and even the stuff I could have played later, didn't necessarily match up with the music I was listening to.
Got
Um,
it.
Whereas, bass and guitar kind of was in everything I was listening to. And so, when I really kind of started finding instruments that worked for me, kind of the joy took over. And it was like, I mean, there were, in ninth and 10th grade, just sitting with my little boombox cassette player, playing stuff over and over, trying to learn the bass line. And the audio wasn't even that good. It was hard to like hear it, but like just pouring over these bass lines over and over. And then later with guitar parts. And then later on, when I started playing harmonica, even though I wasn't at that point, I wasn't necessarily listening to music that had harmonica in it, but I didn't care because it was just so fun. And,
Wow.
and because I was, and there's a story behind that, but like, it was fun and it felt natural to me. So I would just try to play guitar solos on the harmonica or melodies or whatever. And I think that led to me having a little bit of a different style because of that. Um,
So I'm glad we're now embarking upon the harmonica. As I was reading and reviewing information on you, I learned something very new, and it kind of confused me. Where the harp is used in some verbiage to describe the harmonica. How is that? Explain to those who might not know, because I didn't know. I said the harp. I thought we were talking about the harmonica. So share how that came to be.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know, other than it's just a shorter, nickname. It kind of
Yeah.
makes sense. It does cause confusion because
It,
sometimes I'll talk about a harp player and then it turns out it's an actual, harp player, which is
sure.
beautiful. I love listening to them play, but
I
it's
do
not.
too. I do
Um,
too.
but and it's funny because I know a fair amount about the harmonica now, but I got to tell you, I mean, it's not something I ever planned really on doing. I did have a little stint in college where I was kind of goofing around on it. And there's a funny story where like my college roommate barged in on me the night before an exam that we were both studying for. And I'm sitting trying to figure out how to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on the harmonica. He's like, what are you doing? But that was kind of a brief flirtation with it, but it was about, 9 years after that I kind of threw myself into it. And there was something about it that just came so naturally. And I think part of that is because I'd been a singer for a long time
Right. Right.
and also could play some other instruments. So from the singing standpoint, there's a lot of similar breath things involved and
Uh,
chest support and things like that, and
mhm.
articulation. And as a singer, just telling a story with your words, that teaches you something about how to tell it with any instrument. And
Sure.
then when it came to, having played guitar and bass and sort of knowing where the notes were on the fretboard, that gave me a sort of template for when I was trying to learn where the notes were on the harmonica that I could sort of match it up to. And I think
God.
that helped too. But regardless, I thought it was going to be just a little fun thing to try doing. And before, a year was out, I was doing my own gigs, but I was also getting calls to play harmonica for other people on their gigs. And I really threw myself into it. And I don't want to say to a fault because I love playing harmonica and I still do. But
Right.
I really kind of stopped playing any other instruments for quite a while.
Oh wow. Wow.
Just because I was like, okay, well, this is I think this might be my thing. And I think it was my thing. But eventually I found my way back to playing those other instruments too. And it's funny how understanding one part of music or one instrument or one aspect of creating music
Mhm.
informs all the other parts. Like when I got back into playing guitar more and there's something in, I think, how your brain works when you're having to struggle
Sure.
that is different from when you're just doing what you've been doing, kind of relying too much on patterns. Well, when you have
Right.
to struggle with the guitar and figure out, okay, if I want to play this kind of phrase, where do I put my fingers? Had the interesting effect of making me, I think, better on the harmonica because when I came back with harmonica, I had a different perspective and almost a different wiring on it. And that's been one of the coolest, side benefits of that. But to
What,
me, it's all music,
right,
and
right.
it's all an opportunity just to create something. And that's why I love the people I play with. I love asking them about, okay, how did you do this, or what? My partner Chalmers Davis, whom you met,
I did.
piano player. He played with Little Richard for 24 years. He's a master.
Ooh,
I can't play piano, but I've played with him for so long that number one, I've learned kind of what to expect and what I might want from it. And I've
got it.
learned a little bit about how to talk to him about that, but I'm always learning new stuff from him. I'm just like, oh, okay, that's how you did that. And I might learn a new harmonic approach on one of my, on several instruments, depending on what I learned from what he did. So that's to me just all part of the fun of it.
Was there a turning point, Scott? Was there something that actually happened? Because I know you were sharing that after a while you just began uh, to go from gig to gig. What was it, like some insane number for you? Well, like 175 gigs in a year or something like that?
At one point for several years, it was around anywhere between 160 and 180 a year,
That's
something like that, for about 3, 4, 5 years maybe. And this was when our
great.
kids were young, and for a good chunk of that, I had a day job too. So it was not the whole time, but yeah, it was hectic. But what were you going to ask though?
But I just wanted to know, was there something impactful that happened that let you know, okay, and I'm sure, having that many gigs in a year might have been, but I don't want to assume, was that when you decided, okay, this is for real? I want to do this professionally as a musician.
I would say there were two big moments, or one moment, and then one sort of just reality that happened later on. Um, One moment, actually, believe it or not, I think, and I don't think I realized this at the time, um, but looking back, was actually 9/11. And I say that because I was living in DC when 9/11 happened. I have a whole nother long story about that, but like, you could smell the smoke from the Pentagon coming across the river.
Wow. Yeah,
And then, the aftermath of that, which a lot of people forget about, included the anthrax attacks and
that's right.
going on in our city. And then there was the DC sniper as well. If you remember that? Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Lots of action. So, but primarily 9/11, because of the epic nature of that event. I mean, I think it made a lot of people really look at their lives and what they're doing,
Right.
and why they're doing it, and what they want from themselves, where their real values are. And I don't mean political values really, but like
Right.
like personal values, like how you want to live your life and what you want to do with that life.
Right.
And when 9/11 happened, I had been back into music on a pretty busy level for maybe a year and a half, maybe a little less. But I had very quickly gotten very active, and I was gigging a lot. And but it was still, I was in DC. I didn't have a plan really, And then 9/11 happened, and this sort of coincided with, I'd been away from home at that point for about 13 years. I had not lived closer than 1,000 miles to my parents. So over the course of about a year and a half, I started drifting back to this idea of moving back to Mississippi. Um,
Ah,
Not thinking it was going to necessarily be permanent. I mean, maybe, but I wanted to come back for a while. I wanted to throw myself into music and do it in a place where I could kind of better afford to do that, while
sure.
with family and some old friends who were in town. And I liked Jackson. I never left because I didn't like it or anything like that. I
Sure.
always
Of
had a
course.
had a big place in my heart for Jackson. Of course, I still do. Um,
Right.
but I had left for various reasons. But coming back was appealing on a lot of levels. But I guess my point is that when you have a big sort of life shaking event, or civilization shaking event in that case, um, I think often it can cause a reckoning. And I think on some level it did that for me. The other thing would be that I would say that as time went by and I started getting a little older, I was 33 when I came back to town.
Okay.
the I guess you could call it the urgency of that feeling starts to go up. And then I started having a family. I got married. We have 3 kids now. We had 2 of those by the end of the 2000s. Or no, I guess we had all of them. They were all born by then. I guess there was a solidifying sense of, okay, I decided to do this. I got to do it. I got to really. Right. You can't just sit around. You can't just like. Wouldn't it be cool if I was a rock star type of thing? And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. That's what people motivated to. But you got to follow up with some kind of action, and the added imperative of needing to raise a family. You do what you got to do. And frankly, I played quite a few gigs during that time that weren't necessarily my favorite. I mean, I rarely ever, if ever, had a bad time. But you do things to make money and to keep things going. And so I think at one point when talking about the frequency of those shows during those years,
sure,
I took very much I'm a working man. I'm a pretty progressive guy in most ways, but one of those sort of old school values I do agree with is if you want something,
you gotta go for it.
I think that transcends, most barriers, or it should,
and it should.
Yeah. So I think that was I'm sorry, I'm letting my dog out of the room.
No, it's okay. It's fine. You're fine.
But what I've also learned though in recent years, since I have not had to play that many gigs and haven't had to quite, I've been able to shift my sort of priorities and how I look at it. I've found that the more I can separate that sort of urgency from the music I'm trying to make, especially the original music that I try to make, the happier I am. And I feel like at this point in my life, at least, I do better work that way. I think there's something to be said for that sort of, when you're younger and you're first starting out, that sort of hunger, and fighting through adversity and all that. There's definitely value for that in that. But at this point in my life, I'm glad to be able to treat it more like an art and less like a job where I'm punching the clock. And it was never completely like that, but there were moments like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to take our last break. I have a few more questions. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get to them, but I'm going to do my best. I want to address your thought about, the industry categorizing certain music and what your thoughts are about that. Because I'm sure many want to know, well, what's the genre of music that he plays, So we may be able to touch on that, but even if we don't, I still want them to catch the premiere, and it's a little after 8. So let's go to the last break of the night. I'll be right back with you, Scott. And everybody, don't go away. We will be right back. I've got a lot more and just a little time to squeeze it in. So don't go away. We'll be right back with more of Scott AlbertJohnson tonight.
The Platinum Agencies is taking the indie brand to the next level with customized strategies that includes interviews on Unsigned Artist Reveal Worldwide and promotional campaigns on social media. Listen to what these artists have to say about us. Daryl Anders of Agape Soul says Sabrina Taylor has created a brilliant platform to showcase unsigned and independent artists. She's been a great resource for increasing awareness and helping me to build my brand. International guitarist Gary Purcell says Unsigned Artist Reveal Worldwide offers a platform for unsigned artists to showcase and put themselves in a position where people can have an opportunity to learn about the artist in an up-close and personal setting. Sabrina Taylor does a great job making you feel comfortable and can really present the artist well to the audience. And it does not hurt that she has a smooth voice. The Platinum Agency's, better known as TPA, brand ambassador for indie artists on social media. Connect with the Platinum Agencies at gmail.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Sabrina Taylor here, creator and host of Unsigned Artist Reveal Worldwide. If you have an interest in any type of campaign, actually presenting new music, I'm the one you need to connect with. TPA, theplatinumagencies.com. I do have an alternate one, I think, that we just heard is theplatinumagencies at gmail.com. Either way, you're gonna get me. And if you need me to repeat any of that, just messenger me and I'll give you the ways that you can connect. But tonight, I want to continue our conversation with our special guest, Scott AlbertJohnson. And I know we have the premiere that's coming up within the next 2 to 3 minutes. So I want to jump ahead to some of the questions that I have for you tonight. Scott, you've traveled. I mean, I've seen, from the East Coast to the West Coast. Was any of that travel related to performances, or was that just you paving your way through life?
Oh, I mean, moving actually, like
back and forth. Yeah.
I would say the one move that was related to music was coming back to Jackson and
coming back to Jack. Got it.
Yeah. And that wasn't the only reason, but it was tied for first, I guess, with being closer to my folks. But side benefit of that, also big side benefit, maybe the biggest, is that I got together with my wife about a month after I came back, and it's funny how life works, really is, because that was not something I expected to happen, but that's usually when the best things happen if we're not trying to. But as far as other travel, I've played music all over this country and a bit outside the country as well. I did a Europe tour. It's been a while now. I'm hoping to go back sometime in the next few years.
You got a favorite place that you've already traveled to and you want to go back?
My favorite city in the world, honestly, is Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And I've played there, but I had been there several times before I played there, and there were times sort of in between where I did play music there, even though I wasn't there for a gig, but I ended up getting up and invited to play anyway, and that was great, and it was this was early on in my career, so that was confidence boosting as well. But no, I love Amsterdam. I love just the people, the open nature of their society, and the cosmopolitan nature of it, and then just the beauty of the canals and all that. It's just a great place.
Yeah. And in relation to music, how many compilations have you released to date?
So 2 full albums and then one single a couple years ago, and I've actually got another single coming out soon. But my first record came out in 2007. That was Umbrella Man.
Yes.
And then in 2015, Going Somewhere.
Yeah.
And then my single Float was out. That came out in 2020. Had a little bit of not a hiatus, because I was still playing a lot and still writing some, but it had been a while since I'd released anything, and now it's gonna it's been a while again since Float, but I've been most of my own production stuff, doing the recording and the mixing and the engineering. This song I have coming out soon, it's called Invisible, and I'm actually playing every instrument on that except for the drums. My friend Kenny Graber, who's in Oxford, Mississippi, who I've collaborated with ever going back to when we were kids, he played the drums, but I did everything else, and it took a while.
I'm sure.
I'm not really an expert engineer, but I'm good enough to kind of get there. So, yeah, I'd like to be more prolific, but I kind of want to do things in a way that I feel is like really representing me. So,
of course. And so What I want you to do is to set up the premiere, which we are about to release in just a minute or so. I know it's an older song and it's called Fragments. You're the writer of this song, right?
Well, I'm a co-writer. My Sean
Co-writer.
Davis came up with the piano part, the beautiful sort of background chords. I
Mhm.
came up with the words and the melody, so we collaborated. Um,
What's the inspiration behind Fragments?
so I was trying to write a song. Like I thought, like if I could write one song that really sort of encapsulates my feelings about the nature of our existence and reality, and kind of how science and religion can be part of that, and but also things that we don't understand that may
Sure.
not totally be explained by either science or religion, and I'm a big reader and I'm interested in ideas like that, and so it was influenced by everyone from Plato to Alan Watts to Louis Armstrong, just different ways of looking at the world and trying to understand and grapple with, what are we in all of this? And so the idea is that we're all kind of fragments of something that's much bigger. And
Bigger than ourselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
and interestingly, I wrote this song in 2015, the same year that it came out. And at the time, my mom was still alive, and she really loved this song. But in the song, there's reference to another person who's there with me. I'm kind of in
Right.
what I'm not sure if it's a dream or if it's real. And this person that I thought was basically gone forever is suddenly they're back. And we're trying to communicate and be with each other in this inexplicable situation. And so after my mom passed, I sort of started to feel like, maybe I was writing this about her ahead of time and I didn't know it, which also kind of fits in with the meaning of the song. So
Got it.
that's
Got
that's
it.
probably overly
No, no.
thinking involved into what it means, but really, I was just trying to say, okay, this is kind of my manifesto of what I believe, and if I were going to put that into shorter words, I would just say I believe that it's all really complicated and we can't understand it all, but what makes us who we are is that we're trying to understand it, and that's what we have to keep doing. Um,
Well, I
so
love the song, and when I heard the harmonica, your tone is just absolutely amazing.
thank you.
That's what drew me,
Thank you.
and so I just wanted our audience to hear it as well. So, you
Thank you.
guys, this is Fragments by our special guest tonight, Scott AlbertJohnson. Enjoy.
I'm sleeping underneath the evening sky. I'm dreaming of a place far from now, imagining you right here by my side, not taking time to wonder why or how. And up above, the stars are shining through, lighting up a dark and ghostly screen. But you don't see them quite the way I do. You're looking at the spaces in between. Are we just a simulation of someone else's meditation? Fragments of a deeper situation. And somewhere up there, I can almost see a place just like the one under my feet, with someone just like you, just like me, walking down an unfamiliar street, in a place that died 10 million years ago, an ancient galaxy without a name. I take a look at you and I know that the distance is exactly the same. Are we just an improvisation, a divine hallucination, fragments in eternal acceleration? And then the dream awoke, and I was here, alone again, looking at the sky. The separation is all too clear, and so we send our rockets way up high, but it's all the same creation, endless information, fragments with an unknown destination. I'm sleeping underneath the evening sky.
Scott AlbertJohnson, everybody. Such a beautiful tone. I love your tone. I
Thank
just
you
love
so
it.
much.
Love it. Absolutely amazing. That was released in what year, Scott?
2015.
Whoa. Wow. Still beautiful.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
still
you.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's I'm especially proud of it because I worked on it with Chalmers and I'd always wanted to do a song that was really piano
Yeah,
based, piano and harmonica, but with that really big piano sound, that sort of almost church like sound.
sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and Chalmers did a wonderful job on it.
Excellent. Tell Chalmers I said hello.
I
Haven't
will.
seen him since the last time I saw you,
I definitely
but
will.
tell him I send greetings
Most
from
definitely.
Unsigned Artist Reveal Worldwide. Please
Yeah,
do.
he enjoyed talking to you that night. That was fun.
No, it was. It really was. So, what would you like for the viewers and listeners to take away, to walk away with once they hear the music of Scott Albert Johnson?
Oh wow. Uh, Firstly, really first and foremost, I just hope they like it. And
Okay.
if they don't, it's okay. I just I really I love playing. I love singing. I love making new stuff. I love putting it out there, and I do hope people will like it. But I think this is true of being a fan or being a musician or really doing anything, is to try to keep the joy. And I just feel like there's so much negativity out there on social media, especially like when it comes to just about everything. I mean, I'll go on Instagram and I'll go check out one of my favorite teams. Like, I'm a St. Louis Blues hockey fan, and so I'll go look at the their updates after a game, and 90% of the comments will be ripping on this person or that person, and that's even after they win. You
That's
know,
right. That's
and
right.
and certainly with music, people can be so obnoxious about what they like and what they don't like. And I mean, like, to me, it's all so beside the point. I mean, music to me is something that's supposed to make you feel more alive and at least sometimes make you, or help you come together with others. And I just think, there's that saying, don't yuck my yum. And don't yuck other people's yum.
True.
There's room for all of it.
Yeah, creatives are just that. They're creative within their own space, their own hearts and minds, and it's not going to be the same from every person.
Right.
If that were the case, we'd only have one person on the earth, right?
That's right. And my
Yeah,
attitude is like, I do have set opinions about what I want my music to be, or at least some set opinions, and I'll fight for those things and try to make things the way I want them. But if I'm playing on somebody else's stuff, that changes dramatically. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
I'm there to serve your vision. You just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do the best I can to give you that. So I just think, if keep the joy.
absolutely.
I know it's corny, but that's what
Yeah,
I believe.
I think it's beautiful. And Scott, when I tell you, I so appreciate you coming and meeting the family, and allowing me to introduce you to them. And the comments are out there. Please feel free at the end to go back and go through, and you can answer, as you like. I know you don't have an opportunity to do that while you're watching, but
I'll go in there for a minute. Sure. I'm just now realizing I was trying to figure out this interface. Now I see the comments. Okay, that's cool.
yeah, the
Okay.
comments are coming up. And so you'll be able to actually go in at the end of the show and go into the page, and then you can respond
Okay, that's great.
accordingly. But we just really appreciate you coming on and sharing. And great interview. Friday Night Live with Kat Carter. Awesome interview. Thank you guys so very much. I want to
Thank you
leave
for having me,
them.
Sabrina. I appreciate it.
Oh, you are so very welcome. And I want to leave them. Um, I, well, you answer the question. Would you think that performing with the Boston Pops was like one of your greatest performances to date? Or would
Yeah,
it fall in that category? You think?
that was pretty amazing. It was um it was one of those moments where I actually took a moment at the beginning, and before the music started, before, right after they'd introduced me, I took a moment, and it was at Symphony Hall in Boston,
Yep.
and um, the room has ringing around it these, I guess you'd call them busts of like medieval or Roman gods or something. I don't remember what they exactly were, but some
Hmm.
kind of like old kind of classical statue looking things.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
decided I'm going to look and really focus on that for a second. and just really look at it, because I wanted to be sure I could take away one firm memory of being there, because those moments can just pass you by so quickly. As it happens, I didn't need that, because at the end, I mean, I got a standing ovation, which was really
did.
Nice. And my kids were there. They were in the upper deck. And I found out later that my middle son, Benjamin, at that moment had yelled out, "That's my dad." So the fact that my kids and my wife were there for that was the best part of it. But it was wonderful. And having the Boston Pops or any symphony like that, and I definitely include the Mississippi Symphony, which is fabulous. Having something like that behind you, I mean, it's kind of hard to mess it up. Honestly.
You got that right. And so I want to leave sharing that with everybody. You guys, this was an amazing performance with the Boston Pops. And quickly share, what do you know why they call it the Pops? It was earlier called Boston Popular, or was that?
I think it's because it's I may be wrong about this, but I think it's because it's sort of like a division of the symphony, but it performs popular pieces. So like, and in fact, when we were there, and I don't think I wrote this anywhere, but John Williams, the composer of all the Star Wars music, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, all those movies, he was there rehearsing with the Pops, because they were doing a month of John Williams concerts. One night it was Star Wars music, and so the day before my performance, we had a dress rehearsal and a sound check, and he was there conducting them, and it was my wife and I were the only ones in the audience watching, and so we got to watch John Williams conduct them. And then the next night, as part of the show that I was on, they did some Star Wars music also, and so my kids obviously love that, and so did I, frankly. So yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Man, you're a superstar. You know that? Such a superstar, such a humble creative. And again, just thank you so much, you guys. Again, thank you too for coming and watching and participating and listening to the music of Scott AlbertJohnson. But I want to leave you tonight with It's a Wonderful World. You're going to really love this performance. So stick around and take a listen. You guys have a great night. And remember, what you make happen for others, God will make happen for you. Scott, hang out with me, okay? Don't go away.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Skies are blue and clouds are white. The bright blessed day and the dark sacred night. To myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, but also on the faces of people passing by. Friends shaking hands, saying how do you do? They really say, I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. babies cry. Now what's in flow? They'll love so much more than you and I will ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.